we're going to practice different types of lines, and then we're going to draw our lion. You're going to draw a square in the middle of your paper. Try to make it kind of big. That way your lion is big. You're going to need to draw 2 circles at the top of your square and 2 smaller circles for the eyes. You're going to need to draw an upside down triangle. If you don't know how to do that, you can draw the letter V and then draw a straight line across, and that's your upside down triangle. For the mouth, we're going to draw a W, and we're going to make the middle of that W touch the point of that triangle. Then we need 2 semicircles. Those are half circles, kind of like a rainbow line. 1, 2. And then you're going to draw 2 smaller ones on the inside. Don't forget to add whiskers. And I just realized we haven't started our types of lines, but we will practice those in just a moment. So now I have the face ready. We'll go back to this face in just a minute. So I'm going to get a new piece of paper and practice these different types of lines we want to try here in a minute when we color. We're going to do straight lines. You can do vertical lines. They're up and down. We can do straight lines that go across, horizontal. We've got diagonal lines. And they can slant either left or right. We have bumpy lines. It's the type of line we use when we draw a cloud or you write the letter M. You can also do them upside down, like the letter W. We also have zigzag lines. Zigzag lines have a sharp point, an angle, like letter V's and A's. You just go up and down, up and down. We also have swirls, not swirls, but spirals. And you start with a dot and you go around and around and around. We're not going to do this type of line, but I just wanted to show you. We also have loopy lines. You go forward, come backwards, go forward, come backwards. You just loop them. Make little circles and loop. We also have castle lines. You go over, up, over, down, over, up, over, down, over, up, over, down, over, up, over, down. And if you say that while you draw, you won't mess up. You could also do like dashed lines and dotted lines. Dashed lines, you can also call them broken lines. They look like the broken lines that you see on the road. Dotted lines is where you just do dots. All the way across. You can also make up different types of lines if you want to. If you want to do some squiggly lines, you can. If you want to do wavy lines, I can show you how to do an actual wave. You have to draw the letter C. I'm going to draw the letter C all the way across. And this is where you do the trick to make waves. So I'm going to come back to the beginning. And the top of my wave, I'm going to make a line touching the end of the paper. And I'm going to take the bottom of the C, come up and touch the top of the C. The bottom of the C touches the top. And you do that all the way across. Make sure you do every C. And that's how you make waves. So those are just different types of lines. So in your instructions that I gave you when you touch your art caddy, I'm going to leave another piece of paper underneath here so when I draw my line, I won't make my table messy. When you touch your Art Caddy on your Google Virtual Classroom, I have instructions on there about colors. So the colors you're going to want to stick to. Now, if you don't have markers, you can use crayons, you can use colored pencils, that's okay. But you're going to need a red, orange, yellow, brown, and black. I know they're hard to see, but now you can see them. There we go. So the first thing I need to do is I need to color my eye black. And I'm going to color my nose brown. Now, I'm not going to do my whiskers yet or the mouth, and I'll show you why in just a moment. I'm going to do the inside of my ears. Now, if you're using markers, you definitely want to do this step the way I'm showing you. I'm going to color the square yellow first, and then I'm going to do the brown mouth and whiskers, because if I did the brown first and I colored in yellow on top of it, you will make your colors bleed. And you don't want to make your yellow all dirty, especially if they're brand new. So I'm going to color in my ears. Just be careful. Don't touch the brown. That way it doesn't bleed. Now, you're in 2nd and 3rd grade, so you can but color with straight lines, and you get cleaner coloring in between your shapes. So you're not in 1st grade or kindergarten anymore. And I know you've probably done this project if you were here last year, but I wanted to give you a chance to practice your types of lines again, so when we do a different activity next week, you have remembered all these different types of lines that we know about. And I also tell my 2nd and 3rd graders that you can use the side of the marker instead of the tip, and you can color more area. Oops. I usually use markers for this activity because it goes a lot quicker when coloring. But you can use colored pencils or crayons. So that's all I'm going to use for yellow until I do my lines. I'm going to go back and get my brown and do my whiskers and my mouth. Now, usually in class, I let you have permanent markers so we can trace, but we can use a black for this. So with the black, I'm going to trace my pencil lines that are left, and that's going to be my eyes, the square, and his ears. I know my one ear is smaller, but I have this crack in my table, and that's what happened. So you might want to make sure when you're drawing you don't have something like that happening to you. You can trace your nose if you want to, but you don't really have to, especially if you're using markers. But if you're going to use crayons or color pencils, you might want to trace your nose as well. So now I can do my different types of lines. You really only need red, orange, and yellow. You can use brown for the hair as well, and I'll show you that last. So I'm going to put my paper of different types of lines next to me so I don't forget all the different types that there is. So what you're going to do is when you do this part, you're going to want to go around your paper, kind of like a clock does. And there's a trick to do that. And the trick is to turn your paper as you work. I'm going to start with a straight line first, and I'm going to use yellow first. So I'm going to take my yellow, and I'm going to do straight lines. So up top, I'm just going to do straight lines coming from the square. And I'm going to turn my paper. And as I turn my paper, just kind of space out the lines a little bit so I have room for other lines. And there's my straight lines. And I can either pick a few other lines to do yellow with, or I can just pick up my yellow again in a minute. And I think I'll just pick that up again in a minute. I'm going to get my orange. And I think I'm going to do my bumpy lines with orange. You can put the top on the back end so you don't lose it. So I'm going to turn my paper so I do my line right. Now you can do a pattern if you want to. I'm just going to randomly turn my paper and kind of make these lines. I have about 2, so I did kind of do a pattern. I put 2 on each side. Make sure you hear your lid snap or your marker's going to dry out, and you don't want that to happen. I have zigzag lines. I'm going to do red. And I'm going to turn it sideways to start too as well. And it's okay if your lines overlap. That's what kind of makes your line look very full, like his hair is full. He's got plenty of hair. If you go slower, you'll get those real sharp angles. If you go kind of fast, it might be a little wonky. And I did my zigzag. Now I'm going to do loopy lines. I'm going to take my yellow. And I'm going to do loopy lines. I'm going to go around it just like a clock. And if you want to do more loopy lines with different colors, you can do that. But I usually train y'all when you're younger to stick to a pattern so you don't forget what you've done. Castle lines. I think I'm going to do orange. Remember, with your castle lines, we do over, up, over, down, over, up, over, down. If you say that to yourself, you won't forget. And you'll know how to draw them. Okay, so I have some other special lines on here. I have broken lines, dotted lines, and other. You can already see that it's pretty full, but you can overlap. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that brown. Remember how I said you could use brown if you want. And I'm going to do some dotted and dashed lines. I'm not going to do these types of lines just because even though they're types of lines, they don't really fit with my little pattern here with the lion. So I'm going to do some broken lines. And it's easier to draw without turning my paper with these types of lines, but if you still need to turn your paper, you can. And I can also do dotted lines. So I can just make dots in a straight line. And he's starting to look complete. Just don't forget to write your name. You can use a pencil. Make sure you write your first and last name so you sign your paper. You can find a spot. Don't forget your first and last name. I do ask that you put your teacher's name somewhere too, only because when you're taking a picture of it, remember all of all of second and third grade are together. So if I need to let a teacher know anything, I know what teacher you belong to. Right, well that's it. That's our line lines. And those are our type of lines we learned. And hope you had fun.